And I agree, we need to, or you need to move on and put your stamp on this program. And I really mean this not as a criticism as much as a constructive suggestion so that we can get on with the business and quit giving ourselves a black eye. And again, I'm not suggesting that there were no problems. Who doesn't have problems? If you've got something going, you work at it, you're gonna get into situations. But I think the exaggeration here is a little bit significant. It almost seems, again, like we had a program that was in shambles. I don't agree with that. And again, I thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, we appreciate your comment. We also have Henry and Maggie Whitmire. Mr. Whitmire, would you like to make comments, sir?
No, I wasn't sure exactly of how the agenda worked here, and I didn't know whether it's the sign in for the portion of the business that deals with our offer to purchase a lot in the Veterans Home edition or whatever you call that. And so I wasn't sure of of your process here, so I signed in, and should I wait until that portion of the business comes up?
We're going to be in executive session when we go into that. So if you want to share anything with your plan about the square footage of the buildings you're going to do, any specific that you have
Sure.
that may not have been able to provide. And Maggie, if Henry doesn't mind, y'all want to join together and tag team it, that's fine too.
See if we can do this. I think I've met everyone here except you, Ray.
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you, man. Nice to meet you.
Let me just hand these out. We have gotten campus architecture to put together a rendering of what we propose to build on one of the lots within the Veterans Business Park. And
I'm going to plot 4.
it's right across from the post office.
Right.
And so we anticipate building an office building with approximately 3,000 square feet and with a paved parking lot. We anticipate trying to do this as soon as possible and move forward. We currently have an office just right next to the old post office. And it's a small office building, but we have some third. We also have an office space rented across the street in the Turner building. And we currently have approximately 20-some people that are working out of those two offices right now within the office. But we have other people that we don't have space for. And so we're anticipating building an office building that would allow us to be able to bring our people into the office so that we could work on a closer basis. All of our, the people that work for us are independent contractors, and we work in the oil and gas business in leasing, title work, title curative, and just anything that assists the oil and gas companies in getting into drill. At this point in time, we are working within Wilson and Karnes County, and we have been here working in this area for since 2007, I think. And our business actually goes out to all over the state, and we're willing to go to other states. At this time, we have business locally. However, at some point in time, the business will move to another area, as it always does.
With the office remaining, hopefully.
The office will remain here because I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
we are local residents. We plan on staying here. We live between Floresville and Livernia, about 6 miles south of Livernia. And this is a good place for us to be. And this is just one office that we have. My brother is the other part of my partnership, and he has an office in Cameron and runs the same type of operation that I do. So we work in conjunction with one another. We just have different clients and work in different areas. So this is a proposal for an office building of approximately 3,000 square feet, more or less.
The elevation appears at the top, what the proposed elevation that we're hoping.
Where exactly on Paloma Drive is this?
Right across from the post office.
If I can, I'm gonna show you the map here to give you a delineation of what we're talking about on here.
It's lot
Here's,
4.
here coming off of 181, here's the post office, and it looked like it's lot 3,
Corner?
3.
On the corner?
Yeah,
right here on the corner.
Yes, uh-huh.
34.
That's cool. We're hoping to get your blessing and able to get our building underway.
We have met with Mr. Campos, and we have a plan in place to be able to move forward rapidly.
There are some questions as to the easement and the setback boundaries. We had seen a plat, one says 15 feet setback and another one said 20. And then the city has something different, and we need some clarification, hopefully with, when it's approved, that we can get all that. So that we follow the guidelines of the permit requirements on, and all of that with the city.
And with that, if any of you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Yes, sir, I have a few clarification when we go in a little bit later on, working up the contract. If we, you said you're ready to move forward, what kind of feasibility period do you think you would need to be able to come in here to get clarification, plan, and all like that to make sure you do it? Because what I'm thinking is when we get to the end of the feasibility period, your withdrawal period ends at that period of time. So we need to know about what kind of feasibility period you think you'd need. I'll give you ample period of time to be fair to us too.
Mm-hmm.
So what, if based on this and it's coming up pretty rapidly, where would you say?
In order for us to have a
Commitment.
firm commitment to move forward,
Yes, sir. And we're talking about after we signed the contract, of course.
Mhm.
I would say it would be a very short period of time.
I would say 10 days.
10 days,
If that-
because what we're looking at is to proceed in a very orderly manner, hopefully to have everything completed within 5.5 months.
Okay, the next question I'm gonna ask is, if we're needing to see performance, we all tell them to make sure they're performing. And if we want to close it, would we be able to maybe close the sale simultaneously with you doing a construction loan or kind of your approval for the building loan so that we can ensure that you start the building immediately thereafter? Well, I'm saying if we just don't sell it, and then 2 years from now, you say you change your mind and all. So we need to make sure you proceed in a forthright manner.
Yeah.
So is that something that's workable and may need to bid with you,
Construction loan,
yes, sir. Close it simultaneous with the closing.
there will be no
No construction loan?
construction loan.
Okay, so we'd need to close it simultaneous with your approval for your, approval of construction then. So that you move straight into construction phase then, okay?
As a matter of disclosure, we had met with you several weeks ago with respect to a loan, but we've decided going this way. We are very blessed, thank you, Lord, that we should have all the funds required for this
Good.
project.
Good for you.
Super good.
Very blessed.
Does any other committees have anything else in regard to them?
You know-
Again, we'll be going into an executive session discussion. They're not eligible or able to come in here about open records law, so you need to answer questions now.
Are there any restrictions or anything available that they can already have to study as far as certain percent masonry or certain percent whatever that exists in the industrial park?
We do plan to do, to follow the guidelines that are there, the asbestos, very similar to Studio C. What is that, the stucco look? With that, the apron, with rock on the bottom, as shown on that elevation. And it'll have a, what's the roof going to be? The composition roof?
It'd just be,
Similar to, very similar to the
normal.
Studio C building that's there. And the same colors possibly as the veterans home, to keep it
Right.
all
Blend in.
blend in, yes.
And that could be an approval term that is subject to review and acceptance of the plans and finish out or something like that if you wanted to.
And it's asphalt parking lot?
yes. And we're looking, you know, from, based on the cost of asphalt, if it is what we've been told, then, you know, I'm looking at asphalt, I'm not looking at tar and gravel.
Right.
We've
So I'm
spoken,
looking at something more on the order of what the post office has, as opposed to what's over on Studio C.
That's chip seal.
Yeah.
And I think that we're asking these questions because we want to move it to that
sure,
as well.
sure. We've spoken with Roger Wells, out of Pleasanton, and he and Arthur Campos together, we hope that they'll be the ones helping us with the project.
What about the sign? Is that gonna be maybe a rock or a stucco sign?
He has that on there, but
That honestly is something that we had not discussed out there. And actually, you know, for a sign out there, I would think that it would look best to have it basically the same as your, the rock on your building. I mean, that would be much more pleasing than just a wooden sign out front.
we
Any
have
other
a,
questions for the committee? For Ms. Whitmire?
I do have a question. On the driveways, is that something that the city would have to approve in terms of based on their guidelines for
Yeah.
driveways?
Planning and zoning, this will have to all comply with the city reg. Whether they'll be able to get both of them off of it, I don't know that at this point in time, but they just have to modify this or not.
mhm, yeah, we can do that.
If not, if we were only allowed one, then we would have to modify the parking and possibly the entrance way.
Final call? Thank you so very much.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And nice meeting you all.
You bet.
Now, what I want to do at this point in time is kind of go back to the old business here and come through that. We have a approval of minutes. I believe you have two sets of minutes in front of you there. One of them is for a regular meeting held April 15th, 2013. And the second is for special meeting held April 25th, 2013. I'd like to dispense with the reading of those minutes. Is there any amendment to the first one, April 15th?
Yes, Mr. President, on April the 15th, second page, second paragraph, motion was made by Jason Tony, seconded by myself to approve, but we need to add that the board voted unanimously to approve. That phrase was left out.
Where you at?
Second page.
Which one?
Take by to
Second
approve.
paragraph.
Okay, we need to go ahead and-
Yeah. Other than that, I would, make a motion to approve this minute.
Okay, we have a motion by Mary Helen Deacon to approve the April the 15th minute with the correction. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Jason. Callie, is there any further discussion? All in favor of approving the minute from the regular meeting on April the 15th, 2013, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Now then, we're going to do likewise with the minutes from the special meeting held April 25th. Is there any addition, corrections?
Mr. President,
Yes?
on page 2, the last paragraph, I don't mean to be picky, but I don't go by Mary Teagan, my sister-in-law does. And Mary Helen. It's petty, but it's just the way it's not me. Blame it on my mother. She gave me 2 names.
Last paragraph.
Did you call that?
Do I have a motion? Is that on?
I want to ask one question. Where it says Mike Harry on the same page, right above that, Mike Harry moved to hire attorney Lou Rosenberg, I'm sorry, in the paragraph above it, it says, in open session, the board took this action. What action? Am I talking about what is below that, or?
Well, and regarding, it should be lowercase regarding the garnishment judgment, garnishment slash judgment, and to work on a resolution settlement not to exceed, that should be 17,000, comma, 731.36, including court costs.
So, in open session, the board took the following action?
Well, you're talking about one of the paragraphs above it, yeah.
Because when you go back and look at this, I'm not sure if we can follow it. In open session, the board took the following action, semicolon. Mike Harry moved to honor.
906, Jason County moved to go out of executive session, it should be go back into regular session. It's seconded by David Trozer, and the board voted unanimously to approve. Strike the last sentence.
Right, okay.
So you want to restate your agreement?
Okay, okay, regarding the April 25th minutes, second page, where if you do the third paragraph from the bottom, we would strike the sentence that says, in open session, the board took this action. And then on this next paragraph, move to hire Rosenberg to represent FEDC regarding, that word regarding a small case, not an uppercase. A garnishment judgment, and to work to a resolution settlement not to exceed 17,000, it should be a comma, not a period. And I would put a dollar sign there, including court cost.
And then also include Mary Helen in the upper category. Okay, we have a motion to approve those, subject to those corrections. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Ray, Lambert, second. Any further discussion? All in favor of approving the minutes from the April the 25th with the corrections as reported, please say aye.
Aye.
All approved, all opposed, same sign. Thank you. Treasurer report, Mr. Jacob.
I
Question?
think he said, did you say that?
Mr. Jacob.
I made a
On the
motion.
first one?
Okay, let me just pass this out. Some of this has been covered already in the month of April at some of our meetings, but this goes through the end of the month. And I do want to point out, there's a couple items there, like on 4.2 and 4.15, but I think those are labeled wrong. See in the memo section, it says overdraft protection. I'm not aware of that being an issue, so I need to double check on that just to see what that was. But I do recall talking to Kathy about something, and I think that's one of the two items she had mislabeled. And I don't recall exactly which she had told me that was in particular, but then,
While we're on that, Jacob,
Yes.
if we can, those are showing negative balances. And also when we get down to the bottom, we're back again to negative balance.
yeah,
Is that
Well-
account negative balance?
no, and that's what, I've spent a lot of time with them getting things worked on, because, the system that we have was just kind of used as a system just to keep record of transactions, but we don't really have the proper accounting whenever you have a balance and you bring in stuff as a transfer. In other words, you gotta have the left hand and the right hand communicating, and I don't think that that's been happening on the computer software itself, okay? Like, just to give you an example, I spent 2 hours last week just still simply working on breaking down all the details. Let me just give you an example of that. Let's say we sell a piece of land, like we did with the Rodriguez property at Lone Oak, okay? Or the Lone Oak property to the Rodriguez family. Well, you have a total piece of property as a total gross amount that's being sold for, but then you have title fees, legal fees, all that stuff. Well, in the past, we were lumping that transaction as just a deposit, but in reality, it needs to be, the gross transaction needs to be indicated somewhere, and then all those other expenses need to be recorded as expenses. So when you look at the sale was not just truly, let's just throw a number out there, 53,000 or whatever. The total gross sale was 56, but minus all these expenses. So, I've instructed Kathy that we've got to break down our legal expenses so we understand what legal pertain to that lawsuit, what legal pertain to real estate closings, and what legal pertains to our general counsel. That way we're able to identify, those kind of things, just looking at a budget type comparison sheet. And we talked about that with even electrical, for example. These are just simple things I know, but it's still, if we're paying electrical at the Fair Warehouse, we need to know that it's electrical for that property. If it's electrical elsewhere, it needs to be reported. So we're trying to get all those line items broken down specific to properties, that every single expense and income is accounted for properly, okay? So, as it shows like this, of course, Yeah, it would show negative because of those dollar amounts thrown in there.
Now, is it a QuickBook
It's
program?
QuickBooks, yes.
Is it updated or not updated?
I'm sure it's updated because I know that Kathy does that.
Okay.
But, you know, my questions to her is, well, I said, look, we're gonna work through on getting this better identified and detailed, okay? And her response is usually, well, I was just, you know, given this information and that's what we did. Okay, well, that's fine. But, you know, I wanna make sure that we have a better breakdown, okay? So really, this list today is just to show you simply the expenses that were paid out. You know, I've promised you several meetings, we're gonna have this detailed summary. Well, it's getting there. It's just, I spent 2 hours last week, and it's just still a very, very small piece of it, because she's having to move entries around to get it in the right places. The other thing I wanna make sure that we do is anytime that we have the memos, that it's consistent. You know, you'll have a memo on one thing, and then you'll have a memo on something else. It's worded a little differently, but it's the same thing. Another point I wanted to make is split expenses. That tends to be happening a lot where we have someone, let's say we clean the bare warehouse, but yet that they fixed a few potholes at the industrial park, okay? Well, that needs to be on 2 separate invoices, and we need to write 2 separate checks. And it's, right now, you know, we've been writing 1 check. Well, I don't like that. I want 2 separate checks, and I'll talk to Ram about that, and talk to Kathy, that from now on, we gotta have 2 separate checks, because it just makes it easier, versus what we have to do in the memo section is we have to identify what it goes to. You know, and you can track it that way. But,
Couple of checks, I apologize, like this, Floresville Electric for
Yeah, that-
7370.
that check's not written, and that check is voided. Right,
Yeah.
Ram? Yeah. So see, how that got in there, I don't know. That's another thing.
And then the Rancho Grande, Burry and Partner Rancho Grande check for 32.
Well, those are engineering fees that have occurred from previous contracts.
That's what
And we're done on that now, okay? The one thing that you'll see in May is you'll see about $612.50, I believe it is, for expenses that Larry had when he attended our last few meetings, okay? But we're done with the contract on whatever work he's done previous.
Okay.
But the check of the 7370 has not been cut. And that's another thing, you know, in this process, we need policies and procedures that address these kind of things, meaning that we will not write a check until we have an invoice and it's something that's been approved. We don't need to write a check yet and have it sitting there ready for payment if we don't know it's gonna be paid.
So how did that one get on this?
Well, I don't know, it's a good question. I really wasn't even gonna come tonight because I was not feeling well, so I really didn't have a lot of time before I got the meeting to review this, but why it got entered. Well, I know how it got entered, because the check was written, it was not signed yet, and of course Kathy put it in the system, probably not knowing that that check is void, and that's probably not. Okay. So, because we had discussions with Ram and then Andy about that, because we have no agreement to pay that.
So we need more detail and more consistency in the reporting.
Yeah, and we're getting there. And then, of course, down at the bottom, you see that J.D. Raymond check, you know, that was paid. And Howard's billing for his work he's been doing on the various contracts, meaning the business park, the real estate closings, and all those things. It kind of actually came in with about 3 different items there for the Sunco.
Does it need to be busted up more, you think, or not? Does Howard's need to be split?
Well, you know, that's the other thing, is that really his is considered probably general counsel. And so at this point in time, all we did was split it up in 3 sections. Real estate, general counsel. I mean, one thing we could do is if he had some real estate, oh no, he didn't have the real estate fees. Dominic Carvajal had the real estate fees on that land we closed over there, okay? I mean, if y'all want to split that up more, we can.
That's
But most of the work we've been doing recently is just general representation.
Would there be a time when we get asked by the council, how much have you spent in legal fees on real estate
Probably wouldn't be.
versus?
Because in real estate transactions, you're gonna wind up spending some money, and you're gonna need to justify legal fees, that was legal fees, it was, through this closing.
Well-
Any for the always thing there or not?
Oh, I think you're still working on something, yeah. But the whole reason I started that process of splitting those up, because if we are asked, I want them to understand what's general counsel, what's real estate, what's,
Well, and I
what
think
was
with
the
this city
result of
council,
the
they're
litigation.
gonna wanna know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the approach to this has been, the more detail, the better. Because we want, what I had told everybody, Bram and Kathy, is that we want to be able to look at reports and be able to identify exactly what this pertains to, okay? And that's the whole goal. You know, and if the memo explains it well, let's have a shorter, let's get the language down to where we can code it a little bit better, where you can squeeze it in that memo line, you know? So.
Let me go to that one, that one in question, that 7370. Let me give you just a little bit of background, and we're gonna be bringing this up. There, when they had the original meeting with FEDT and everyone out there regarding the Texas Department of Health that's being built out there, there was a meeting, and at that meeting, the contractor, Randy Hine, and the owner of the property, and Ben Beatrice and all, said that Mr. Pettis made a commitment he would pay that fee for the electrical services. We haven't seen any of those documents, or there's nothing in writing to that. But Mr. Hine contacted me, and we're gonna be bringing that in here for consideration and action later on to see if we wanna, pay part of it, all of it, or what, not, and all. So that's how that came over here. Felt actually billed us directly for that bill because of that commitment that Ben had made in.
But there was nothing in writing.
No, there's nothing in writing. So we'll address that later on. And as you'll see, that JD Ramming paving, that 17,737.36, that is settled, we're released, 4A released, it's a done deal.
Yeah, team.
Now, the only thing we lack is I have visited with Bill Gleason, the 15,850, I guess is round number, is what we actually, the invoice is remaining to be paid from back in 2009, it was not, in 2010. And the legal fees, which is approximately $1830 or something like that, I asked him if 4A would consider paying half for all of that. And he's going to visit with his board because I don't think that was really our responsibility. I'm not committing them, but that's it. So that, again, following Jason's full disclosure, that's a couple of items that I'm aware of and you'll be know about.
And the photographs by Jim, that was just a renewal on the website. I had him break that down over 2 periods in a year versus just one time. That was just because we weren't sure if that's the route we're taking or not. But right now, that's what we have, and it's functional, and he can update it, so we're leaving that alone for now. Other than that, payroll taxes. And then the balance is currently, checking is $4,875.45. Money market is $683,359.71. And the CD is $57,972.59.
Anyone have any other questions for the treasurer's report? I don't believe we need a motion to approve it, but
And let me just mention that today I checked with the comptroller for the city, and we'll be getting our sales tax. She indicated that they got it last week, but she's in the process of breaking it up between the 4A, 4B, and the city. So
Does it come from the comptroller broken down?
no,
Really?
they do it here, you know, and so they're a little bit behind, but it's one of those things, I guess we have to wait, and I think probably this month also we get the beverage sale part, which is not much, around they're normally around $3,000, $4,000,
Okay,
So those two checks eventually will be.
thank you.
The only other thing is we're going through this, something occasionally pops up and you realize, oh gosh, this is still an issue. We have a cell phone that's really not being used. And so I asked Ram to call to cancel that cell phone because we really don't need that. Now, they did indicate that there would be a cancellation fee because I guess we had a contract. And, there's a couple of options. If you do have this contract, I think they charge $245. I would probably still try to negotiate with them on that and see if they'll do it for less or whatever. But if we kept this thing, no telling how long it'd cost more than that. And so I think our best bet is to cancel that. You can actually turn around and redo this, no problem at all. But it's a phone that's not being used. And so I think we just need to get rid of that.
So,
Amazing it hasn't been active 2 years.
how about would there still be a contract on it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you probably need to pull the file and see what the date is
Is
on
there
the
a file?
agreement.
I'll check into that and see if there's a problem on that.
Who you dealing with, the carrier around there, who you dealing with?
AT&T.
Okay. Great. We're moving on to committee report. Do we have any committee reports from personnel or
For
audit or
for
anything?
personnel, I would like to say that we're going to, in the very near future, get together a checklist, a broad checklist of criteria based on the job description, to take a look at the applicants that we've had for the ED's position. And as soon as I get that done, just as a broad check, and I think our committee could meet and we could getting down to brass tacks, you got a couple of them, okay, good. But I will just say this, I'm very pleased with a good number of the applicants, they look really good, but we need to move on this.
Yeah, we don't want to find another job. They're
Well,
already
some of them are
looking.
back from March, so,
Mhm.
we
Right.
really do need to
Mhm.
do that.
Good. Anything else, Mayor?
No, that's
Any other committee reports? If not, we're gonna move on to new business. And we're gonna start out with action item A, discussing consideration, review, improve, amend if necessary, as needed, professional engineering services by Berry and Partners regarding project bid document construction contract for driveway construction for Rancho Grande Industrial Park. You want me to read this? He's reading it up rather skilled. We have received a draft from Mr. Larry Hyman regarding his proposed bid package that he has. I only made one copy, 107 pages of this, if you don't do it. It basically goes through his production bids, the bonds required and things like that. I've read it, Jason's had it to read it, and Ram, and it's also, I understand, it's all from email sent to Howard Berger. I have not heard back from Mr. Berger about any issues in this, so I guess silence is golden, and I can check with him tomorrow if he did have any concerns, but it's a pretty standard draft. There are 3 things regarding bonds that we need to consider tonight, and a 4th regarding an umbrella policy. They're typical this year, they had request bid bond, performance bond, and payment bonds. A bid bond is naturally be for them to submit a bid, they have to provide a bond. That ensures that if they're awarded the bid, they can fulfill it and proceed on to contracting to do it. That's a pretty innocuous amount typically. I think in this, it was 5%. The estimated projection on the cost of this is gonna be about $70,000. So that's it. Naturally, the bid bond goes back to them if they don't get awarded performance bond. Performance bond is just like the name implies. It's a bond to guarantee they perform to construct the project according to plan and spec. The final one is a payment bond. And a payment bond is, in layman's terms, it basically just ensure the subs and all get paid for the job, don't lien it, which we just had an issue regarding it all. So those are the three we need to make a decision on if we're gonna require them. For a small job like this, it's not gonna be very much anyway. We're using public money to do this, so you can argue that side. The other side of the argument is it's a small job, not gonna take 60 days to do. You can save a few bucks. What is a few bucks? It depends on the contractor and things like that. Could be, and I'm just throwing a number out, I really don't have an idea exact. Let's say $2,500, $3,000, something like that. And that's just based off experience. So I'd like us to make a decision if we're gonna do on the bond, sir. The next item is the policy has it written, I believe it was for a $5 million umbrella policy. That's a pretty good sized umbrella policy for this. It's also off of a state highway, a school bus comes around there during construction, they get hit, $5 million, not very much. Jason and I were talking, I think the bid bond out here for Randolph Brook on theirs, the umbrella was,
3 million.
was $3 million. So we should actually, if you wanted to lower it, you should lower it. So there's issues there. If you don't lower it 3 million, it may cut some people out that you'd like to have a chance on it. I'm gonna give you kind of a little bit of a itinerary of what we're looking at. We're having a meeting tonight. If we call Larry back tomorrow and tell him here's what we want, he could actually go out for bids if possibly as early as starting tomorrow. Put them in the paper, put them in the couple of the contractors' websites and journals and solicit bids. Somewhere around, if you give them 2 weeks and us have time to gather them in here, we could have a bid opening something like June the 11th. Call a special meeting for like June the 18th, award the bid, turn around immediately, have a pre-construction meeting with the contractor that's been selected out on the site. Somewhere around mid-July, start the work. Somewhere around, hopefully no later than August the 31st, be finished. In that window like we have there, we would be within the 6-month period of our approval for our textile. So we just can't delay this too long. So that's our tentative.
What's the textile approval date, do you remember?
Well, they give you 6 months, but as long as you show that you're doing progress, they will allow you, they'll extend it, you know,
We can't
but,
afford to let this go
Okay.
on.
no, it can't drag on.
And they will extend it if you're doing some work. So we
As
didn't
long as
need
they
to.
show, and they'll be notified of all the work that you're doing out there. And local people, you know, will be going out there to see that work is being done out there.
I think it's March it was in mid-March. So if we
Yeah.
finish that
Yeah, middle.
on this period, we wouldn't have to spend the money to file for an extension and
Right.
things like that.
Right.
So
Yeah,
that's the issue there.
that's what we should have to do.
Now, this bidding is requiring the contractor to go out there and do all the geotechnical studies and things like that. So, the way I understand this contract, if we don't have to provide everything is put over to the contractor. So, they're not relying on us, and that's the way I don't look to have
We're not
it.
the experts.
Well, we don't engage the geotech to come in and do it
Yeah,
either,
yeah,
so.
no.
Now then, with that, let's go back to,
The other thing I would just add, the insurance requirements is pretty basic on other stuff, the general liability, the FEDC endorses the additional insured, waiver of subrogation, all those things are included in there in his wording.
Explain the 5 million again on the umbrella, what was your interpretation of
that's just an awful lot for this job of this size.
What's the difference in cost, 3 and 5, roughly?
Probably $1,500. You know, but, you know, your umbrella only pays after your underlying limits are paid, so the underlying limit on the GL is 2 million on this, and then it would pay over that if there was more than that. But, once again, you know, it's the right-of-way issue, it's, you know, you could be backing a loader over the highway and somebody.
that? Well, given the history in this county right now, horrific accidents that we've had,
And being that, you know, that road is not
Narrow anyway.
It's narrow, you know, so they're gonna be doing work and, you know, I'm sure that they're gonna be signs all over it, you know,
straight shot right
Oh,
in
yeah,
there.
yeah, that's
The
right.
curves on
Yeah.
right there, but.
Okay, let's take it from the top then, and bid bond. Y'all have a preference, you want to leave the bid bond in, or take it out? Again, that's just insurance, that the contractor that's doing it, it's gonna go ahead and perform.
You leave it in there.
I say,
I think we should leave it.
Okay?
We don't need
Performance
it.
bonds,
Make money.
I think we need it,
absolutely.
payment bond,
for sure.
umbrella policy, leave it at 5 or go down to 3.
If you leave it at 5, that gives us 7 with the 2 that's under it. All those trucks and stuff, I mean.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
tough call.
yeah.
I wouldn't wanna be the one making that
All the trucks
decision,
going through
you
there
know.
too.
You know.
I'm thinking we're probably better off leaving it. But,
Okay. If, Jason, if you'd like to interject anything, but that's the 4 things I saw that we needed to take into consideration for this. Is there any other discussion on it? I will be glad to give this to you and let you peruse it, but again, it is very standard.
So these would be the same types of things that we would do on almost any of these types of projects.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
So nothing out of the ordinary.
No, ma'am.
now, if
The
you're,
question would be, why wouldn't we do it?
yeah, if you're internally in the property itself, that's probably a
Yeah,
little bit
yeah,
different
yeah. But
than
we're not
being
on the
working
highway.
right on,
On the highway.
right away. Mr. Heimer and myself, we talked about that,
Mhm.
and he also said, well, you know, we are on the right of way. And I said, well, that's true. And now, what about, now, we had already approved the construction contract for Mr. Heimer in terms of.
He was approved, if my memory serves me correct, we approved him, engaged him with a fee not to exceed $3,500, and his actual bid came in at 3.
Yeah.
So tomorrow, Ram can sign off on that, send it back, because it came in back
Yeah.
Ram.
And there's also in here, there's a nice worksheet of prior experience. You know, there's a lot of questions about, you know, what projects do you have going on now? What experience in this area do you have and going on? So that would be another big factor in determining who's awarded the contract.
Like everybody will be judged by the same standard.
Well, if there's no further discussion, I would entertain a motion on this one way or the other.
I move that we approve the driveway construction contract and bid documents for the Rancho Grande Business Park on 5/37
Second.
as presented.
I have a motion, Mr. Jason Talley, second, Ray Lambert, to approve the professional engineering services produced by Berry and Partners regarding project bid documents, construction contract for driveway construction and bid on the Rancho Grande Industrial Park. Any further discussion? If there are none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passed. We're going down to D, discussion, consideration, action, review, liability insurance coverage for directors, officers, and board members of FEDC.
You know, I think this got put on here because we had already had a motion at the last meeting to allow us to go ahead and get coverage. But today, one of the final quotes, I don't have a sample specimen policy yet, and that's the meat of the whole deal. What we're looking at and trying to achieve here, and there's a few things that I've found out since we last met, is number one, we're okay with coming off of the current directors and officers policy with the city. Okay, you can be removed as an additional insured. I did confirm that prior acts can be covered with that policy, because what you run into when you go to a new carrier is they're not going to cover prior acts, or there's other exclusions that they might have. Okay, well, you got to weigh, well, what's the most important one you can deal with, okay, or without. Well, a couple of the quotes had an exclusion in there that talked about would exclude a government entity from a lawsuit. Well, you know, that means the county, that means any other entity that has the ability to sue you, you know, so it could be a hospital district or whoever, who knows what, I mean, you never know. But the point is that as long as we have prior acts with the prior carrier, I'm more comfortable with moving to a policy that actually considers covering any government entity if they were to sue. We don't want that exclusion there, because you never know what it would be. And the other thing that we're after, and all of these policies have the same insuring agreement type language that talks about monetary and non-monetary damages. So whether it's alleged or it's really something that's happened, you're covered, okay? And they pay first duty to defend costs, meaning that if you get served with something, you turn it over to them, and they basically start providing your legal defense. So we've gotten 2 quotes so far. Just so you know, I've gone to Doug Shoemaker and John Fleer and getting quotes. John's quote came back today, but we're just lacking the sample policy, which I want to read. Okay, now, in the prior discussions, we really didn't talk about cost, but this cost ranges anywhere from $1,500 to probably $2,500 on the max, okay?
That's
And
for the entire board.
that would be for the entire board, okay? It also covers employment practices liability, which means that if you have any you know, theft in an office or something like that from employees, it covers those items. And they're very, very broad. You know, they each provide really good 800 hotline numbers for assistance and answers and questions and so forth. So, but there's no doubt that it's going to be a better level of protection for the board, and that's really worrying.
So in lieu of that comment, are you wanting to table this until you get?
Yeah, I would say table it, but my only question would be, is that we did in the motion last meeting indicate to go ahead and buy coverage with the carrier that met the best coverage for us, okay? And so that motion still stands in that approval. So my feeling is that I guess we can just act on that once we get the final deal and get it done. You know. Y'all okay with that?
That's fine.
It was approved at the last meeting. Okay, so we'll just, I just move that we table that particular item